So our daughter really loves to watch every single one of the videos we put out. So this small clip is for Kelsey. Hi, I love you. Hi, I'm Angel from Healthy Heart, and I would like to talk to you about something I mentioned in the video this past Sunday about you can't screw up a garden. That's true. You really can't. I heard something today. One of my mother-in-law's friends came by to pick her up and take her out. And she said, well, I wish I had a green thumb like you do. It's not a green thumb. That's a myth. There's no such thing as a green thumb. The key is you don't neglect them. Just like children and spouses need attention and love, you cannot neglect your garden. So there's no such thing as a green thumb. Anybody can grow, but you really need something to be passionate about. That's something that I found to be true. For me, I love growing. I love growing just about anything. My particular love is tomatoes. I love tomatoes. My husband, though, his love is hot peppers. So he loves to grow hot peppers. That's his passion. He's passionate about it. And therefore, that passion is what drives him to take care and attention to the garden and to take care of it and give it what it needs. When you screw up or make mistakes would be my preference of putting that, because you're going to make mistakes. It happens. But when you make mistakes, learn from them. That's the key thing to having a successful garden and a garden that is a flop, or one that frustrates you. There's two ways that you can fail at gardening. Two. Quit or don't even try. Otherwise, anytime that you do something, if it fails, that's fine. If it is not prosperous, if it doesn't do as well as you expected, if something happens, life is uncertain, and there are things that are very trying when trying to grow a garden. I'll give you examples here shortly, but the main thing is don't quit. Just keep going and learn from mistakes. Learn from what worked and what did not work, and look for new ways to improve on what system you have in place. Now, my husband had no experience whatsoever growing anything, maybe mold in the refrigerator, but he did not have any experience growing anything before we started our garden 5 years ago. For myself, I was raised with hi honey. I was raised with gardens. My parents and grandparents were homesteaders before it was cool. So I'm not new to gardening, but some of the methods that we use is still very new to me. And exciting, because hey, this is something my parents and grandparents did not think of, but it makes it easier. It makes it better. It solves some problems. So, there's always a learning curve, but you don't stop learning. You continue to learn and grow as a gardener. 5 years ago, I will put up some pictures here in just a second. 5 years ago, we did in the ground raised beds, which were raised the height of what do you call them? Landscape timbers. That's how deep it was. And we had successes. The pictures I have are beautiful. They look beautiful, but that's before things started going wrong. And I didn't take pictures of that. I wish I had, because that would have been a really good show and tell. But I will put those pictures in now. So we had a lot of mistakes, and we had a lot of successes also. Like the peppers and tomatoes did really good, but the carrots did not grow. The worms ate the radishes. There were kind of mealyworm, centipedes. They killed the radishes. The squirrels, the rabbits, destroyed the corn patch. Every single stalk of corn gone. They just gnawed it down to the ground. So, but we were so frustrated after that. I think the second year we had to take a year off, and that's fine too. But we went to the drawing board and we're like, well, this isn't working. So what can we do to make it work for us? And one thing was the raised garden beds. I think they're 3 foot high, and they're 4 foot by 4 foot square, except for the long one, which is 20 foot by 4 foot. Like I said, we need a lot more of those, but those work really wonderful because they're easy to maintain. It's easy to weed. You don't have to bend over, break your back. You don't have to do any hoeing. I do have a small razor that I use to cut out some weeds close to the plants, but it's very easy to maintain. And one of the main things, especially as you're getting older, because you're not going to get any younger, right? I mean, if you feel me, it is, you need to make what you're doing work for you as much as possible so that you're not working quite so hard. And in doing that, you can actually grow a lot more stuff. I also love the raised beds because you can grow a lot more stuff in a smaller area. There are 7 things that your garden needs. It needs the sun for photosynthesis. It needs water. Everything needs water and the sun. Pretty much the same thing that you do. It needs sun, water, nutrients. It needs the air or gases. It needs the right temperature to grow in. It needs time. It's not going to pop up overnight. Although it is amazing to watch things, how they grow after a rain. And it needs soil, unless you're talking about hydroponics, which we don't do. Maybe in the future we'll look into that, but that's not something we're interested in right now. But it needs those 7 things: sun, water, nutrients, air, temperatures, time, and soil. And most of the time the nutrients are in the soil. Sometimes, especially in a raised bed is very much like a planter in that it has the nutrients, but it also has the benefit of the worms crawling into it and giving their poop, their what is it called, worm castings, to help fertilize. The raised beds do have that advantage over planters, which are self-contained. So that's one good thing that I really like about them. But the main thing to know is, don't expect miracles overnight. It is a learning curve. You will have to learn and grow as your garden grows. The garden is a living, breathing beast. It is good, and it has good things, it has bad things, and you have to learn to cope. Just like life, you have to learn to cope with the bad, and change the things that aren't working for you. Just like I said earlier, like a spouse or a child, you cannot neglect it and expect it to thrive. It's not going to happen. Some things that I do, I always give it the care that it needs: the sun, the water, nutrients, air, the right temperatures. If you can, we don't have the ability to control the temperatures yet where we live, in time, and the right soil. Some plants like sandy soil, some plants like loamy soil. It's not really that complicated. If nothing else, what we've been doing is using Miracle-Gro potting soil, or a potting soil that's made for containers, because it has a time released in there. And then we've been having to top the beds off every year, so we've not really needed to do a lot in maintenance for nutrients. adding nutrients to the soil. And also, they have the worm castings, because those beds are loaded with worms. And as long as you don't block off the bottom to give the worms access to it, you won't, you won't need to add worm castings, because they'll do that themselves. What I do is we give it the care that it needs, the things that it needs that we have control over, we give. And we talk to them, at least I do, and I sing to them, and I fondle them, and I call it praise them. But the number one thing is, and I know they said this last, but this is the number one thing: give thanks to Yahweh for all of the bounty that he's given, and pray for your garden. I can't even tell you the difference it has made in the last 2 years, because when we plant, we pray over our garden. We pray for Yahweh's protection and for his blessings and his bounty. And hey, prayer makes a difference. I don't care who you are. Prayer makes a difference. And lastly, there is a lot of advice out there for new gardeners and old gardeners, seasoned gardeners. Is that a better word? There's a lot of advice out there, and give it a try. It doesn't hurt to give it a try, because a lot of the advice they give is tried and tested, and it works for them. So they recommend that for you. For an example, topping the peppers. We tried that. We got very few peppers on that. But when we did not top the peppers, they were loaded. And we just continued having a continuous harvest all year long, all growing season long. So what works for one person may not necessarily work for you. There's also, you have different growing conditions, gardening conditions. You have a different climate. You have different challenges that you face. For us, yes, we live in the city. We live in city limits. And we had deer, rabbits, squirrels, possums. We haven't had any rats yet. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But I don't like rats, but I don't like squirrels either. So, don't take someone's word as being gospel, that this is what you have to do every single time. This works for everyone, everywhere. That's just not true. And if anybody tells you that, they're lying. Because I can tell you, I live an hour from my mother. That's not that far distant. We live north of her, which should be colder, right? Because we live northern, we should have colder temperatures. We don't, because we live in a city that is a bowl, and the storms break up over top of the mountains and then sometimes reform on the other side. But over the bowl, we have a lot warmer temperatures. We are easily 10 to 20 degrees warmer north of my mother than what she is south. She lives in a holler between two mountain ridges, and the sunlight is limited during the day. She doesn't get as much sunlight as we do, but the temperatures, because she lives in the mountains, is colder. So she doesn't even have as long of a growing season as we do. Right now, I think she still has her tomatoes and her peppers inside, and does not have them planted out yet. So, just keep in mind that there are different situations. There's different challenges, different climates, different critters that you may have to deal with, and you may have to find solutions for. But don't let any of that discourage you, because that's just growing pains, and that's life. Life is growing pains, and so is gardening. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. But just to let you know that you really cannot screw up a garden. It's very, very hard to screw up a garden unless you spray everything with Roundup, like my neighbor hit my blackberry bush. Unless you do that, you can't screw it up, okay? So don't be fearless. I mean, I plant things together so close that you would not think that they would grow and flourish and do well, but they do. All of my peppers in the beds, 16, 24 plants in one 4x4 space. It works. It works for me. It may not work for you. But as a concept, it does work because they like being together. And then I put things together that don't necessarily go together, like the radishes with the peppers. But then again, you have, as soon as the peppers grow up, they're going to provide shade for the radishes too, because radishes like the cooler weather. It's the same for the lettuce. I put the green stalks at the back of the garden until we get our trees cut down. They're in shade. And so that will keep them cooler and keep them from bolting as soon. Now, when the trees get cut down, hopefully soon, we will have to figure out another location possibly for those planters that will possibly on the west side of the house to keep them in the shade a little more so they don't bolt. But there's things like that you just have to rise to the occasion and find out what you're made of, because gardening is so much fun. It is so much pleasure. I can't even tell you how much I love the garden that my husband has made for me out there, the planters that he's built, the trellises, the arches. I love that. And I love planting the seed and watching God give the increase. It's wonderful. And the only better feeling than that is having a child until they get to be teenagers. But I just wanted to give you encouragement. Listen to advice, but don't take it as gospel, because sometimes it's not going to work for you the way it worked for someone else. And the most important thing is to have fun with it, because it is fun growing your own food. There is something so rewarding about going out of the house, just walking out the door, going to your garden with your basket and picking your meal for the day. It's shopping from your garden. There's something so special about that I cannot even express, but those of you who have experienced it understand perfectly what I mean. But that's all I want to say for today, and I appreciate you listening to me and coming and joining me, and I wish that you are to be healthy in heart, mind, body, and soul, just as I strive to be. And may Yahweh bless you and keep you and give you shalom. Until next time, God bless.